Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to break down the recent wave of food recalls that seem to have everyone asking the exact same question. Yeah, this comment, it just hits home, right? You see it on Reddit, you hear your friends talking about it. How does this keep happening? It really does feel like we're getting these food recall alerts constantly. So, are we? And what's really going on behind the scenes? Well, to really get a handle on it, we're going to look at 4 huge incidents that all happened in March of 2026. Think of each one as a different piece of a much bigger and honestly, kind of scary puzzle. We've got a classic supply chain breakdown, a brand new threat from an online superbug, a contamination that went global, and even a case where a company flat out refused to issue a recall. All right, let's kick things off with a story that probably feels really familiar. A recall at a big store that most of us shop at. This case is, well, it's the perfect way to see one of the most common, and often invisible, cracks in our food supply. So with the Costco meatloaf, the problem wasn't something that happened in the deli. No, this started way, way back in the supply chain. Get this, a single ingredient, maybe a spice or something, from just one supplier tested positive. And that one tiny point of failure triggered a massive recall in 27 states and territories. It's like a domino effect. Okay, so the Costco incident was salmonella. But here's the thing. Not all food poisoning is created equal. That's a huge umbrella term for a whole bunch of different bad guys. So let's actually meet this rogues gallery of pathogens that have been causing all this trouble. First, you've got your classic culprit, salmonella. This is the bacteria that was behind that whole Costco meatloaf thing. For most of us, if you get it, you're in for a really rough few days, but your body can usually fight it off without any special treatment. It's kind of the usual suspect. But, and this is a huge but, the salmonella found in those Rosabella moringa capsules, that was a whole different animal. We're talking about an XDR strain, which stands for extensively drug resistant. Basically, it's a superbug. It's learned how to fight off all the standard antibiotics we normally use. So if that infection gets serious, doctors are left scrambling for Plan B or even a Plan C. Next on our list is E. coli 0157H7. This was the one linked to the raw farm cheese, and trust me, this is not your average stomach bug. This specific strain produces a nasty little thing called a Shiga toxin. That toxin can attack your kidneys and lead to something called HUS, which is a form of kidney failure. It's incredibly serious, and it's especially dangerous for kids. And for our last one, we have something totally different, the cereulide toxin in the Nestle infant formula. Now this one it's just sneaky. See, it's not the bacteria itself that's the big problem, it's the toxin the bacteria leaves behind. And this toxin is heat stable. That means you can boil it, you can pasteurize it, and it's still there. That makes it a terrifying hidden danger, especially in something like infant formula that you expect to be 100% sterile. So, okay. We've met the culprits, but how in the world did they get from wherever they start all the way to our kitchen tables? Well, the routes they take are as complicated and interconnected as our modern global economy. Let's go back to the Costco case. It's just a perfect textbook example of the supply chain problem. Just look at the journey here. It starts with one little contamination at one ingredient supplier. From there, it gets shipped out, mixed into the final product, and boom, it's on store shelves in dozens of states. All of that happens before a single person even feels sick. Now, if you think that's big, the Nestle recall took that same exact problem and blew it up to a global scale. The culprit was a contaminated nutritional oil. One single ingredient from one single source led to a recall in, wait for it, 99 countries. 99. It's just staggering. But then you have the Rosabella moringa case, and this shows us a totally new contamination superhighway, the internet. You couldn't just go to a store and pull these capsules off the shelf. Nope. They were sold directly to people on Amazon, TikTok, Etsy, you name it. How do you even begin to manage a recall like that? You can't. It's not about clearing shelves, it's about thousands of little packages already delivered to people's doorsteps. So far, we've been talking about accidents, right? Things slipping through the cracks of a complicated system. But what happens when the problem isn't an accident at all? What happens when it's a direct standoff over public safety? This brings us to Raw Farm, the company behind the E. coli-linked cheese. And, well, this wasn't their first rodeo. As you can see from this timeline, they have a pretty long and troubling history of their products being linked to outbreaks, stretching back almost 20 years. Now, in this latest outbreak, more than half of the people who got sick were little kids, under the age of 5. But despite that, the company didn't just deny it. They actually took to social media and accused the FDA and the CDC of egregious and extreme harassment. And here's the real kicker. The FDA does its job, right? It investigates, it finds a clear link between the cheese and the sick people, and it recommends a voluntary recall. And the company's response? A simple no. They refused. And that creates this incredible standoff, leaving a product that health officials believe is dangerous still for sale. Okay, so you've got these incredibly complex supply chains, you've got superbugs popping up online, you've even got companies that refuse to cooperate. It really makes you wonder, who is actually watching our backs? Let's talk about the global food police. It's not just one agency, it's really a whole team. You can think of the CDC as the disease detectives. They're the ones connecting the dots when people start getting sick. Then the FDA comes in as the food investigator, tracing it back to the source. Your local and state health departments are the boots on the ground, doing interviews and collecting samples. And when something goes global, like that Nestle mess, you have an international network run by the WHO that coordinates everything. So after all that, what can you actually do? Look, the advice from public health experts hasn't really changed because the basics still work. Cooking your food thoroughly, being almost obsessive about washing your hands and cutting boards, and keeping raw foods separate from cooked foods, that is still your number one defense. And, just as important, pay attention to those recall alerts. When you look at all these cases together, you see a picture of a system that's under an incredible amount of stress. We have pathogens evolving into superbugs. We have supply chains so vast that a problem can circle the globe in a matter of days. And we have a whole new Wild West of online sellers. It all boils down to one really critical question for all of us. As our food system gets more and more complex, is it actually getting safer, or is it becoming more fragile than ever before?